Boyle from Pillar and Post. He's going to talk to us about well and septic. But before we get into that, do you want to tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure, thanks for having me. Sean Boyle, Pillar and Post, home inspectors. We do home inspections first and foremost, as well as a bunch of additional services that go along with home inspections. We kind of try to be a one-stop shop where we've got radon testing, well and septic testing, which we're going to talk about today, wood destroying insect inspections, water quality, mold sampling, air sampling. We do sewer scopes. We try to be a one-stop shop and kind of get one phone call, get it all taken care of for you.
So we're going to talk about wells and septics because a lot of people may find a property that they like that has one or both of these on the property. So let's start out by talking a little bit just like what is a well and what is a septic?
Sure. Well, let's start with what is a well? It's a way to get water out of the earth into your house most of the time. It's basically digging down or drilling down to the water table, however deep it might be. And an old school well, you could be dug in this wide and you're fetching buckets of water out, or a more modern well where you're drilling down hundreds of feet and you have a submersible pump pumping that water to wherever you need it. So in its basic form, it's digging or drilling down to the water table and finding a spot where you have enough water to pump out consistently. That's a well.
And are there pros to a well opposed to city water?
Yes. I'd say the biggest pro is no water bill. That's the number one. The pro in my mind is you kind of have a little more control over your water quality. City water may be treated and you can find reports on it and everything, and they're adding chlorine and all that stuff to it. But you can test your own water whenever you'd like to, and you have, if you need to do something to it, if you need to treat it, based on that water test, you've got control over that as well, and that would be a pro, I would say.
And I know some people have concerns about wells, does it taste funny, does it smell, but you can put into place systems to address those, correct?
Absolutely. So if you do have a very strong sulfur smell, or you have some sort of contaminant in the well, there's always a treatment system most of the time that can take care of that issue for you. Make the water smell better, taste better. You can get a reverse osmosis system that's going to essentially turn it into bottled water. Definitely always something you can do to fix any issue with your well water.
And why would it be important for someone to get their well inspected, and what do you do when you inspect it?
Always important to get your well inspected. You want to be healthy and safe with the water you're drinking, number one. So you want to test the water for the quality and sample it for certain things that could potentially be harmful to your health. So you want to know what you're drinking, and you should do that on a regular basis. What do we do when we inspect a well? We take a water sample, number one. We inspect the physical condition of the well, the wellhead, wherever it might be on the property. We want to make sure it's in good condition. There's certain things we would look for with the electrical, with the well cap, and also the distance from certain things like a septic system. You don't want it to be too close to your septic system to prevent contaminants from getting into it. Condition, location, water quality, and just making sure all the mechanical portions of the system are working properly, providing good pressure to the house.
Because some wells have a pump to bring that water up, so you'd want to make sure that that is also functional. And
yes, unless you've got an old school system that you're bringing the buckets up, you're going to have a pump either in the well or in the house, depending on the style of the pump and how deep it is. You want to make sure that pump is working, obviously, and then there will be a pressure tank, most likely inside the house as well. Certain things can go wrong with that pressure tank that will, provide inconsistencies if it's not working correctly, providing good pressure to the house. So pressure tank, well, pump, kind of work together. We want to make sure they're working smoothly.
And what should clients know about how to maintain a well?
Test your water on a regular basis, especially if you've had an issue in the past. Maybe you've treated the water to fix it. You're going to want to test it, again after that. So testing it, your water, make sure it doesn't have any contaminants in it.
Is there a general rule of how often you, like yearly, every couple of years?
Yeah, not really. I would say if you know you had an issue in the past, I would probably do it every year at first until you get consistent results, and then maybe every couple of years, and then just what you're comfortable with. Anything changes with your system, if you're replacing things, or even if you're doing some sort of construction on the property that might affect it, like you spilled a bunch of chemicals and you have a really shallow well, if anything changes on your property, I would probably test the water to make sure it's the same, nothing's changed. But no actual rule, generally
Okay.
it's just gonna vary.
Is there any maintenance on the pump or the pressure tank?
Not much. Certain pumps that might require maintenance, the jet style or surface style pumps in your house might require some maintenance depending on the kind of pump. But most often you're gonna have a submersible pump down in the well. There's nothing you can do really on a regular basis to get to it without pulling the whole thing out. So you shouldn't have to do anything to the pump. Pressure tank, there's adjustments you can make to it to make sure the pressure is, you got a pressure switch where the, like adjusting it to make sure it's providing the ideal pressure for the water in your house. Not a lot of maintenance to it, make sure nothing's leaking, starting to rust. You may think about getting a new pressure tank, but not really a lot of maintenance unless you've got some sort of treatment system in addition to the basics, or water softener or a chlorinator or something like that. Those are things that help better the quality of your water. Those require a little more maintenance.
And let's say, how long do pumps or pressure tanks last? What is the replacement cost on those?
So as far as a pump, mine's been going for 20 years. I know that. Going to vary based on the depth of your well, how hard it has to work, how often it's used, obviously. So I'm gonna say at least 20 years.
One that can last 20 years.
Yeah, sure, but they're not always gonna last that long. And as far as a pressure tank goes, that's probably gonna go out on you sooner than your pump, I would say, more than likely. Those can become, they've got air bladders in them, they can be waterlogged, they can go bad. They got more, parts on them that can go bad quicker, but those are above ground and easier to get to, easier to replace, so they can leak or get waterlogged. Replace those. If it's an emergency and your garage is full of water like mine was about a year ago, you're gonna pay over $1,000 for
Okay.
for pressure tank doesn't cost that much, but getting somebody out in kind of an emergency situation is gonna cost you $1,400.
It's good to know, those ballpark at least figures, it's kind of like, well, if it does go out, what am I looking at,
Sure.
so that it's not a surprise and you can save money. What about with a well pump?
I haven't had to replace a well pump myself, but the cost of the pump is not gonna be, that much. I don't know exactly, to tell you the truth. You're paying probably more for labor and getting there and pulling the pump out and putting it back in. But the cost of the pump itself it's not thousands of dollars, it's hundreds of dollars. So when we're talking about well and septic, it's going to fall under the county health department standards or regulations. Part of why you should get an inspection for your well and septic system are to make sure that your system is up to county standards or code. Because if the county health department doesn't like your system for whatever reason, or they find an issue, you have a really old system, you may get stuck with very expensive replacement costs, repairs. This is probably more so on the septic side, where it's more of an issue, I would say. Typically for wells, you're going to want to make sure you've got that water test is probably the number one thing when it comes to what they're gonna see. Distance from your septic system. There's lots of things that are county standards that you wanna make sure during an inspection that your well and your septic are up to current county health department standards. Otherwise, you may get stuck with expensive repairs or replacements.
Is it easy to just call the county and ask those questions, or especially with the well, you said we want to keep it a certain distance from the septic? Are those diagrams on record anywhere? How would they get the information to know that they're in line?
Many times you can call the county and get records with a map showing when it was installed, how deep is your well, and here's your septic system, here's your leach field. So especially with more modern systems, anything recently installed, the county health department should have records and maps and everything. But fairly often you'll get you know, older systems that have been there a long time, haven't been updated, and the county will not have any records of them. So yes, you may very well find records at the county that can show you everything you need, but just because the county has those records doesn't mean it hasn't changed, the owner did something to it or something failed. So the other part would be the inspection, making sure everything's up to snuff.
So it seems like with wells, no water bill, pretty low maintenance, as long as everything's taken care of. They're not a bad option for people to be scared of when they
No,
see it
yeah.
on a house.
No. And just remember, if you're checking out a house and it's got really bad sulfur smell to the water, it can be fixed. You know, you can do something about it.
Which is good to know, because if people have always had city water, they go to a house, turn on the faucets, and it smells that way, and then they think, can I live with this forever?
Right.
They don't have to, even if they get the house.
There are treatment systems for pretty much everything that you can add onto your system to fix the smell or fix the taste.
Do those treatment options have a general range of cost? Like I need to put in a water softener, or I need to put in
Sure.
a reverse osmosis system?
Yeah, there's gonna be so many different options out there depending on what you actually need. You know, a simple filter might be all that you need. It's only gonna be less than $100 even maybe. Or you get into a small reverse osmosis system, a couple $100. Large whole house reverse osmosis system, you know, $700-800 maybe. There's gonna be so many different things. You might need a big system that would cost thousands of dollars, but more often, you know, a water softener, a filter, you know, maybe $1,000 on a very basic system.
Again, good to know at least a ballpark, because tend to be, oh my gosh, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to put in this whole system, and in reality it may be only a couple thousand.
Sure, and get it inspected, and at least you'll know if it is going to cost thousands of dollars, and you can plan on that.
Right.
If you,
Well, Sean, that's like super great information for our buyers and homeowners to know when they have a property with a well or septic.
good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.